Okay, guys, I don't know what you're doing with your marketing, but the way marketing is going for most real estate investors is changing. Things are moving towards online marketing. We're talking about social media and internet online lead generation today with an expert, Adrian Nez. How you doing, Adrian? Welcome to the show.
Hey, Connor. Thank you so much, man. Happy to be here. And yeah, I think we're talking offline, man. It's really cool to connect, dude. I think we've known of each other for what, 2, 3, 4 years. So yeah. Cool to connect, man.
Yeah, so I've been following you. I've learned a lot from you, watched a lot of your videos, had a lot of success using some of the techniques that you taught me. So guys, we got an expert on here today. I'm gonna try to get a lot of information out of him, show you how he can help you. Also, he has ways that you can actually contact him later and work with him directly. He does have a company he can help you with your SEO. So let's kind of dig in here and talk about, first off, just online marketing in general. This is a topic that, like, I don't know how to put this, most investors are scared of, right? Especially because the investing community is older. A lot of them are like, I don't want to learn that. It scares them. But why do you think people should just dig in and say, okay, I'm going to take the loss in time. I'm going to step back a little bit and invest in myself to learn this, because it's a huge opportunity that a lot of investors are missing right now.
So that is I love that question. And I'm not just saying that because it really kind of reflects kind of what my methodology is, or really what I believe that things are at right now. Like you said, so many things are changing. Technology, people are changing, right? There's so many dynamics that really happens naturally that causes things to change, and we have to evolve with that. I'm going to kind of go a little bit deep here, but one of the things I really believe is that no matter how great we've been as marketers in the real estate circle, I don't think we've ever been really good marketers. And let me explain what I mean by that. I think for so many years, we've rode that wave of just telling people what we do, and it's worked. Okay. So, and when it works, we think that we're doing something special, but yet really we're just riding that wave of things were good, right? There was less competition. Information was not wasn't available as easy it is now. You got so many people doing coaching, live events. There's just been a quick burst of knowledge about this industry for so many years. And then years ago, your tools could have been your advantage. Like, for an example, we'll use Investor Carrot. Me and you are very familiar with that. 3, 4 years ago, that could have been your advantage because not many people knew about it, right? So now what happened, and then direct mail. If you had a certain list source, right, that was probably your advantage. How quickly do you have access to it, and how quickly can you move on it? There's a lot of advantages of it, right? So, but now what's happened is now everyone's using the same tools. Everyone's using the same source. So now what is the one common denominator that's going to separate you, right? So to me, now we got to do a better job of getting back to the basics of marketing. And for me, it's really simple, actually, when you think about it. Is simply first understand who your target market is. So in this case, sellers. I really believe that day and age of just saying how we buy houses, we can do this, we can do that. I just think those days are gone. Now, don't get me wrong. That's still a good solid foundation to start with. You need a starting point. But I think now, like you said, you kind of have to take a step back and start being really intentional with your marketing. So if that means you investing some extra time in learning more about your market, the demographics of your market, and crazy yet, maybe even the reading education level of your market. And let me explain what I mean by that. So this stat kind of blew me away. I heard that the average reading level of most Americans here in the United States is anywhere from 5th grade to 7th grade. Crazy, right? So why is that so important, right? So to me, everything's about communication, right? How you communicate with someone and what you're going to do is very important. So if you're speaking past someone's level, you can have the best tools, you can have the best offer, you can have this, they just won't comprehend. Yep. Right. So when you just kind of start throwing things at people, I just don't think that works anymore. So to me, it's about setting yourself apart. And the best way that you're going to set yourself apart is really to begin to find ways to one-on-one relate to that person. So we're talking about motivated sellers, right? So for me, I think it's so important, to build that one-on-one rapport, like give a crap about their situation,
Yeah.
and understand what their objections could be as they come into this circle of what you can do for them, right? So I think like me and you, we can talk on this podcast all day and say, we know it's easy for us to understand how it works, but yet to the everyday person, I always say this, to the everyday person, maybe us saying we buy houses in 7 days is a shocker to them, right? Or we can say, hey, we can buy your house without you paying any fees. To us, we sound so cool in doing that. But then on the other end, people might think, wait a minute, that sounds too good to be true. Nothing's for free. Is this a scam? Is this what's going on here? Like, what's the catch, right? So we begin to then here on the other end, as investors, we see our numbers. We think, okay, our response rate is 1%, and we want to blame the mail piece. We want to blame whether it was a postcard or a yellow letter. But yet maybe, just maybe, it's just because we're not doing a better job of better communicating of what is it that you're trying to offer. And to me, what you're trying to offer, pretty simple rule of marketing, is you got to make it about the seller. In this case, the seller we're talking about. And so for me, I always tell people, one of the biggest questions I get a lot is, Adrian, should I be doing SEO? Should I be doing Facebook marketing? Should I do Craigslist? Right? And I never give an exact answer because all those platforms can work for you. It can. I know some investors that are killing it with Craigslist. I know some investors that are doing great with Facebook. Right? And then on the flip side, I think me and you were talking about this, is on the flip side to it, you're going to have a group of people that says that Craigslist is terrible, no results. And then Facebook, don't do it. It's a waste of time. Right. So what's the difference? What's the medium point and what might work for you? And I think to me comes down to just understanding who is it that you're trying to target. Do you really, really understand their concerns? Do you really understand what their goal is? Right. So I know I threw a lot at you right there, but I think it's a good starting point to your question.
Yeah, I mean, like it comes down to the psychology, like we were talking about this a little bit ago, for the strategy or the individual, which strategy they're choosing, right? So if you get into direct mail and you're results oriented and your first few mail campaigns go really well and you pick up a couple good deals, that triggers a response that says, this works, this is good, this has a high ROI, I'm going to continue doing it. But everybody that's watching or listening to this right now are going to listen to this in the future. If you send $10,000 out on a marketing campaign, it doesn't work. You're biased towards it. You're results oriented, even though the next 10,000 could have generated 2 leads for you. So it's a tough thing for investors to kind of overcome that fear barrier to continue marketing using a strategy that wasn't initially working for them when they started. And then they bounce around from different strategy. They bounce around, then they go Facebook, then they go to pay-per-click ads, then they go to radio ads or whatever it is. They just bounce around, but they never stay consistent with one strategy. Which is what I see as one of the biggest problems with investors generating consistent leads. What do you think?
Oh no, you're right on with that. I see it all the time. Like I love pay-per-click. That's one of our biggest lead generator. And I wish I knew about pay-per-click when I first got into this business. It was all SEO and YouTube marketing. But one thing I think is I really believe in, and this ain't my quote, but I really believe that in the future, the investor who's willing to pay most to acquire a customer is going to be the one that's going to win, right? I really believe that we're going towards more. The more you're willing to pay to acquire a customer that's going to really set you apart from everybody. I really believe that. So,
yep.
So I think a lot of times people it kind of ties into what you're talking about perfectly about how people are going from strategy to strategy. A lot of people want to throw a couple of dollars to this strategy. It didn't work, but yet they deemed it terrible or didn't work. So now they're going to here. So to me, it's like, if you really want to be successful, you have to have a budget. I really think, a couple of years ago, you can kind of get away with that. But man, just like everything is so saturated now,
yep.
Right? And more people are jumping online. So things are going to get more expensive, to get the place that you need to be to get results is going to take effort, and if you don't have that time, you're going to have to pay somebody, right? So I just think that the person who's willing to pay more is, and again, there's a lot of argument to, not necessarily what is that what's that point, right? Some markets, you can pay $50 to acquire a customer. Some markets, it might cost you $250. At least I'm talking from a PPC standpoint. But, you know, it's kind of identifying what is it that you're willing to invest into your business. And I think one thing that a mentor said to me years ago, which was so good, she said, you know, so many times as investors, the one mistake we make is we get into this business knowing that we can buy houses with no money down, which is true, right? Like we literally can get into a house with no money down, zero. But we carry that same mindset into our marketing. Like they want to get results without putting anything into marketing. And I said, man, that was such a good observation. And I think that's one of the things that we have to break out of if you want to be successful, is that you can't just expect not to put anything into marketing and think that you can get great results, you know?
Yep.
You know, like, don't get me wrong. You can totally put time into SEO. You know, you can put all your effort and you can be hands-on yourself, but it's going to take time, right? It's going to take time, but you know, you could do cold calling. I know a lot of people do cold calling, you know, which can be really good. I know some investors that do great with that, but still, there's still a cost to that on their back end.
No, absolutely. I mean, it's the shock factor, right? There's all this misinformation out there. You got the HGTV shows or the flipping reality shows. You got all the traveling seminar gurus pitching this dream to the individuals as they come through their market. You can do deals with no money, and then they get into wholesaling. And then they understand, hey, I have to market to get deals. I can't just, you know, pick deals up off the street. And then it's this real thing, risk versus reward. It's a lot of money to market, right? Direct mail is expensive, print ads expensive. Whatever you're going to do, you're going to have to spend money. And I think there's this mentality that comes along with it. It's because, I mean, marketing is gambling in a way. Even though you can make the best educated decision to increase your return, I mean, there's no guarantee you're going to send out a marketing campaign and get a deal back, right? And so this is what I think puts the fear into individuals, and they just can't stroke the check or swipe the card. And then if they do and it doesn't go well the first time, it's hard for them to get back on that horse. So you see a lot of information, a lot of data from investors around the country in different markets. What do you think the average cost to generate a lead right now is?
Yeah, man, that's tough. And here's kind of what my mindset shift has happened recently. I think actually I learned this from Trevor. Is I think so many times, like, I've had that thought, that question, like, how much is it going to cost me to get a lead? But I think I changed my mindset, and we did a call on this for Carrot. I forget what call it was. We did a call on PPC, and Trevor really kind of helped me with my mindset, talking about, instead of asking like what it's going to cost, what are you willing to pay to get a lead, right? So he showed me a formula, and it's available on the Carrot site too. He talked about what's your average profit per deal, right? And then from there, just work this formula to where you work backwards. I mean, I think some people, you know, he suggests, and I like his thought process behind it was, you know, for your first deal, if your average profit margin is going to be 75 or 10,000, be willing to spend up to 3,000 to do that first deal. Yep. Right. But so many people, and including myself, I get so caught up in the metrics of, okay, this is the cost to do this, this, and this, but yet kind of missed the big picture. So it's hard to kind of, I wish I was a little bit more prepared to answer that question, to be honest with you. But I just think now the mindset is, by asking, what are you willing to pay to do your first deal or your next deal? That really kind of sets the expectations on what you're willing to spend, you know, because, I'll say this real quick. In one of my markets, our average wholesale deals around 7,500, which is pretty low, but we do a lot of volume. And our acquisition through PPC, we're probably anywhere from $30 to $50, and we're closing really every 10 to 15 deals. So, and we're trying to spend more money, but we can't, you know, because there's a cap on it. So we can say, well, this market is only costing us $50 to acquire a customer, but then we're doing 75. And so on a monthly basis, we're probably spending about 1,000, like overall, and we probably get a certain amount of numbers for clicks, and then of course a certain percentage of that convert. And out of those conversions, we could probably close 1 out of 10 to 15 deals. So we do about 2 deals a month, 2 to 3 a month from pay-per-click exclusively. And we're only spending about 1,000 tops.
Wow.
You know, which is not the normal. It's just a great market. Yeah. And that's the other thing too. Like someone could be listening on this call and say, man, I want to do that. But what if you're in a hot market? You're going to not get those same results.
Yep.
Because we're less, at least talking online, we're less of an option. That's why it's good to diversify your marketing, because I think personally, I know some investors that are doing great in seller's market, but they're cold calling, right? So they're going after people. Because in a seller's market online, we're less of an option. People are kind of, they're kind of being spoiled in some aspect, meaning sellers. So now instead of them coming to us, it's almost like investors, we got to go to them. So you kind of have to pivot your marketing strategy. That's why one of the things, I love this word that a friend of mine says all the time, because you got to stack your marketing, stack on your marketing. I love that phrase. It's so true. Like for me, when I first got in this business, it was just SEO. But man, I had to wait 6 or 7 months before I got leads coming in, because it takes that long to get going.
Exactly. Yep.
Right. YouTube is not what it used to be either. Right. You have to, even with using certain platforms, you have to pivot from maybe what worked 5 years ago to 3 years ago to what's working now. Right. So it's all about pivoting. And I think so basically what we're trying to say, I think what me and you're talking about is when you just kind of have that one dimensional approach in your marketing and you're not growing, you're not intentional, you'll never learn when and how to pivot, especially when it comes to marketing.
I mean, so we see a lot of data. We have a lot of students come through our programs, and we basically get to see the different types of individuals and the different types of philosophies, how they see the business, right? And so it comes down to time versus money, right? So SEO versus pay-per-click. You can sit there and spend all your time learning SEO, figuring out how to do it and implement it, but it's a long-term strategy, but it takes a lot of time, where you can just simply start running pay-per-click ads and be up and running right away. But what do you think it is that when it comes to pay-per-click that keeps people from leaving their marketing campaign out there long enough to actually start the process of generating consistent leads? Because you see a lot of people touch and go. They're like, okay, this is going to work. I believe in it. They get all hyped up. They throw up a bunch of ads real quick. People start clicking it. Wholesalers call them trying to build their buyers list. And then they're like, oh my gosh, I'm paying for all these wasted calls. And all of a sudden they panic and they pull it down, right? So let's talk about the power of consistency and repetition and momentum to build up, kind of like what you're talking about, stacking, whether it's stacking different strategies or stacking the same strategy, but going deeper into it. Because I think that's where most people do not become successful in marketing, is they don't understand the consistency and momentum that builds up.
Yeah. So this is just me. Okay. So there might be some that, and I'm probably going to talk more to the newbies for this particular one. But for me, I think what made me successful is I chose one thing, which is SEO. Now, the downside to it, I had to wait 6 months for me to start getting traffic. So that's the downside of it, right? Now, if I know what I know now, I would have started PPC. Now, the excuse that a lot of people have is too expensive or it costs money, which is true. If you really want it, you'll find that budget. Okay. It may not be in your business, but you might stop eating out for a couple months and just take that money and just invest it into your lead generation, into your marketing. One of the biggest misconceptions with PPC, let me step back. I don't want to cover it PPC, but for me, I think the biggest advice is choose 1 or 2 channels that you want to master. Okay. And really be good at it. Be really good at it. Because I think if you can focus just on that one marketing, not only are you consistent, like you said, you're comfortable, you're becoming an expert, but I think you begin to see things that you have never been able to see if you just kind of sat on the sidelines. I think there's just something about taking action that you begin to see things that you just don't when you're not in motion, right? So I think one of the things that I teach a lot with pay-per-click is I tell them there's this notion that you got to blanket the entire city to be effective. Or you got to have this big budget, right? Which somewhat it is true, but this is why I teach PPC. And so if you guys can understand this, it's kind of also, it should be your approach when it comes to marketing. So there's a parallel here. So with PPC, there's this thinking that, oh man, I went to this company and they told me that I need a $3,000 budget. They're gonna charge me another $2,000, $3,000 in management for me. So that's like $6,000. So what happens? People throw out PPC. Yep. Right. So, but what I tell people, like, man, if you're on an unlimited budget, first of all, accept the fact that you're going to have to put the work in. Right. if you really want this, you're going to learn what needs to be learned, right? So many people want things kind of just to be handed to them with not having a budget. So I said, you're going to have to pay the price, right? Like for me, when I first got started, dude, I didn't know nothing about a website, SEO, none of that. But dude, what I did is when the kids went to bed, I spent from 9 p.m. to 1 p.m. just learning, Googling, going to YouTube, really, and then now I've always had a marketing background, so I've always understood psychology. I've always thought that was so important. But I've learned to take what my skill set was and begin to implement certain other things into it. So back to the stacking, so I stacked on my knowledge of psychology with inbound marketing. Then I went and found a website that complements that, which was Investor Carrot.
Yep.
And then I found a platform that not only complements Investor Carrot, but my philosophy and my methodology. And I found that was Google, right? So I began to just put all this together. But to me, I felt like what made me successful is I focus on one thing. So I think, actually, let me take it back. YouTube was my number one thing when I first got started. And then I began to learn about SEO. Then now I'm into PPC. So there's just these stages I began to master, but it was through those learning that also I began to hone and better my overall marketing skill.
Yep.
Right. So, but back to PPC, dude, like one thing I love about PPC is that, dude, you can be as dialed in as you want. Right. So one of the things that we teach is if you're going in a big market, who says you have to blank like, let's say you're in the Atlanta market. Who says you got to blanket Atlanta? If you do, that is going to be expensive. But why not pick and choose certain zip codes? Or maybe go launch a cash buyer website, start building up your cash buyers list, see where your cash buyers want to buy, right? So if you begin to see a pattern that, hey, there's 3 or 4 of these zip codes being mentioned, now go set up a PPC and just target just those zip codes, right? That's the beauty of PPC, is that you can be so dialed in that there's no need to spend $2,000, $3,000. Now, eventually that should be the goal, to increase your budget over time. But as a starting point, start with 3 or 4 keywords. Start with a small campaign. Learn how to first manage the campaign. Learn and pay attention to the numbers, because a lot of times when people begin to build this massive campaign out, it's enough time for them just to try and manage it. There's no time for learning. But if you start really small, then you begin to learn through the process of you managing your PPC. Then you begin to build out. And that's what I've done. Like, I started with 3 or 4 keywords. Now I'm up to 25, and we're doing very well with PPC.
Yeah. So let me kind of frame for our listeners why I think, pay-per-click marketing is so powerful. So our goal in this business is to get in front of motivated sellers, to generate leads, and, whatever you're doing, bandit signs, mailers. Let's take mailers, for example. A lot of people like direct mail. You're getting in their hand and you're getting inside their house and they're looking at it, but you're targeting them, right? You're reaching out to them proactively. Whereas pay-per-click marketing is a reactive type of strategy. So it's less threatening to the homeowner. For example, we bought a house off a payper-click ad here in Frisco that was in foreclosure. They had about 20 people contact them, people leaving things on their doorstep. Everybody's hunting, attacking. That's how the homeowner feels. But when they come and they click on your ad, they feel like they've taken power into their own hands, that they've actually chosen you, and that they're not feeling targeted because everybody knows they're in a situation, and they feel like they're being taken advantage of. So that person came to our site and called us, even though they've been contacted many, many times before. So it's a difference of the way that the approach happens that can literally create an increase in your income just because the way that information's reaching them. Also, the other thing is you're reaching them on their computer, in their room, the most intimate place that someone has, in the privacy of their home, so they feel safe, they feel secure, and it's different than just getting a mailer in their hand as they're flipping through their mail that they've seen a billion times. Because like we were talking about earlier, with the mass explosion of education and information out there, everybody's got the same marketing, everybody's got the same bullet points. We buy as is, we close fast, whatever it is. We're the number one company in whatever city. I guess there's 100 number one companies in every city now, right? So it's getting ridiculous. So you have to kind of come at it from a different angle.
Yep.
So let's talk about pay-per-click and these different platforms. You got Google, which seems to be the most expensive. And you got Facebook and YouTube. Say someone has $1,000 or $2,000. What's their best use of their money? Is it to go onto one of these smaller platforms, or is it to go do Google pay-per-click ads?
So for me, I think if someone had 1,000 or 2,000, not my hope for them would be not just to throw marketing stuff out there, but also to learn through the process, right? So, and I think one of the best ways to learn is, like I said, don't start out trying to build out something so massive, because the more massive you build out something, the more time you have to put into it. It's like now you're spending your time just trying to just maintain, and it's so hard to learn anything when you're just trying to keep things together, right? So, and when you begin to start really small, there's less pressure, right? It's easier to pay attention to certain things. You begin to see patterns. You begin to see things. Okay, hey, wait a minute, like I'm onto something here. But if you're just in chaos, just trying to manage just big campaign you built out, there's no learning in that. So, for me, I still choose Google. Like you said, it is probably going to be the most expensive, but it's expensive for a reason, because it works. Mentally, people are just trained to go to Google when they need a solution. They're looking for information. They're ready to take action on something. You hit on something that's very, very good. Psychology wise, I try so hard to always try and have the seller feel like they're always in control. Right. And inbound marketing makes it very easy to pull that off. I've done a lot of creative acquisitions because they came to me, right? Because the dynamic of the conversation when you're knocking on someone's door, and versus you then coming to you, it's a whole different mindset. When they come to you, they're probably more open because they see you more as an authority figure, not as a salesperson, right? So that's why I love inbound marketing. That's why I love Google, because one, again, back to the psychology, the journey of a motivated seller, where are they going to go first, right? I've always believed Facebook is always a second option, because Facebook, I've always kind of said, is a coffee shop, right? People don't really go to a coffee shop to find a solution. Now, don't get me wrong, you can catch them at the right time. You might put the right offer, and you'll get their attention, and they'll engage. So I'm not saying Facebook does not work. It can, but you just kind of have to be more patient with Facebook. You probably have to reach a lot more people before you get that one lead, right? Versus Google, every lead could be potentially good, right? It's the two platforms are apples and oranges. You can't expect same results from the same one. So if someone had $1,000, I would say, first you should know where you want to buy. If there are certain zip codes that you just want to buy in, know those areas. And PPC will help you target just those areas. I mean, it is unbelievable how much dialed in you can be with PPC. Like me personally, like I said, I'm trying to spend more money than I can on PPC, because we're so dialed in, because we're not trying to capture everybody. We're capturing the right people. So if you're going to do PPC, take the time to educate yourself on it. Understand the different settings, because one little setting can determine whether you spend 500 in one day and get no leads, or get one lead and it's a solid lead.
Yep.
Right. So,
okay. So let's talk about, now that we've got the touch, right? Doesn't matter how it came in, direct mail, pay-per-click, or whatever, or I guess let's talk about, because we're talking about internet marketing. So now that you get the touch, let's talk about conversions and converting that lead, because a lot of people work really hard on their websites. And this is an issue that we've dealt with over the years, is that we got our websites to rank super high for most of the keywords, but some of the things I had to do to get them there, the flow of the website doesn't look that great. It's pumped full of keywords, and it's low converting, but it ranks high. And so my thought process is this: if it doesn't show up at all, I'm getting no leads. Whereas at least if I get it up there in front of the customer, I'm going to get some leads from the conversion. What about, like, I mean, obviously it's hard to do this over podcasts because we can't pull up websites and look at them, but a lot of people are having trouble getting their websites to convert after they're getting people to land on their website. What do you think some of those issues could be?
Yeah, I love that question again, man. So for me, it goes back to my point about understanding psychology, right? So for me, I've always heard this argument that you should have a website that has very little information because you want to overwhelm people. And then there's all this I've always believed you got to have a good enough information that educates people, right? So to me, where does the psychology fit in? You have to ask yourself, where are they coming in from? Okay, so let's use Google as an example. When someone's using Google, they're either ready to buy something or they're looking for more information. Okay. So let's look at a direct mail piece. When you really think about it, look at your direct mail piece. You're making these big promises, right? But we don't get a chance to expound on how it works because it's very general, it's very summarized. So do you think that someone's going to naturally just absorb how it works just by looking at a mail piece when we make this big promise and it's a big transaction? People, I think, naturally want to learn more. So let's say they are interested, right? They want to learn more. So now there's curiosity going. So what happens is when you send someone to a page that has very little information, that's not going to satisfy them. But to me and you, we think less is better. That's not always the case. So if you can understand your customer, it goes back to what we started on this call on, understanding your customer at the core. Know their fears, know their concerns, know their mindsets. Because me and you can't change people's mindsets. All we can do is reposition their mindsets, right? So for me, when someone goes to Google, they have an idea of what we do. They have an understanding of how it works, but they want to learn a little bit more. That's why me personally, I send all my traffic to a full website. I never send a motivated seller to a squeeze page. Because remember, a squeeze page has very limited content, and they have nowhere else to go. Okay. So when you send someone who's wanting more information to a page that has very little information, it's like you're making their suspicion even worse. You're not really answering the question. So for me, I like sending them to a full website that they can navigate here. They can go here. They can tap on the company page so they learn more about me. They can look at my testimonial. As they're doing that, they're getting comfortable. They're beginning to trust you more. Now, of course, you should have a website that flows well with that. So don't get me wrong. So I know a lot of people say, well, I don't, that isn't that distracting them? Not really. You're satisfying their needs. So that's why it goes back to what you said about you can do all these SEO tactics that get you ranking, but if that's your core focus, you'll never provide them with the user experience, which is probably the most important factor. So you can rank all day long. You can do all these ninja technical SEO tricks and get you to where you need to be, but also those certain technical tactics can hurt your user experience and they'll never convert. Right. So for me, the way I like to teach is balance user experience and SEO. Like I tell people, look at your website and can you honestly say to yourself that if I was a seller and I came to the site, could this help me? Even if I never called you or I never filled out a form, did it really sincerely help you? Right. So one of the biggest mistakes I see investors make is they put stuff on their website that's not even relevant or relates to a motivated seller. Right. Now, it may help them on the SEO side, but it just makes no sense to a motivated seller. Right. And that's where you can rank all day long, but that's where it's going to kill your conversion. So it goes back. You got to know your motivated seller. Like I said, I want to really emphasize that. At the end of the day, I continue to say this. You got to understand sellers are not conforming to our message just like that. Me and you can say this and that all day long, but at the end of the day, they are suspicious. They think this is a scam. They want to know what's the catch. And we got to do a good job of really putting those stuff to ease or putting that to rest. We got to be transparent. I think so many times, like one of the things we really push at Carrot is, dude, like put your picture on your company page. Put a picture on your homepage. Be the one guy that's transparent in your market. You'll be amazed. Like so many times we want to have that edge. We want that competitive edge. We say we want to level up or we want to scale it up. Sometimes it's just simplest stuff that we can do to make that happen. And sometimes that's just being more transparent. As investors, we tend to be the person behind the curtain, and we just can't do that.
So there's a lot of hot sellers markets right now, especially my market, Dallas-Fort Worth. There's a lot of, the market's real hot right now, and you have to get to these individuals quickly. What are your takes on this as far as even having an opt-in page on your website versus just having a call to action Instead of having the arrow directed to an opt-in page, have it directed to a phone number or text us now or something like that. Because a lot of people I hear complain or have issues with not being able to convert these leads. They do convert them as far as getting them to opt in. Then they reach out to them, but by now, they've already contacted other people. Whereas if you can just have only a phone number on there, they're calling you directly. Now you're live on the phone with them instead of having to follow up later with them, or if they come directly to a text message. Have y'all done any studies or testing on this or looked into that?
Yeah, see, that's a tough one because I think there's such more variables on why someone may not be converting. Like I remember I did a strategy call with this guy. He said, "Man, I'm getting all these leads, but I'm not closing deals." And for some apparent reason, he was blaming the website. And like, wait a minute, like, okay, let's step back. Where are you losing the deals? But the problem was he was taking 48 hours to call people back, right?
Yeah,
that's just not going to work, right? And then so in some markets, 24 hours may not be like that might be too long, right? So there's a lot of different yeah, exactly. So I mean, like it goes back to what I said earlier, like things that we could get away with years ago, we can't no longer. Like a couple of years ago, we can probably get away with sending people to a voicemail or certain task, and we probably could even get away from not calling that for a day or two, but you can't do that anymore. Like things are so instant now. So as far as conversion, in the seller's market, one of the things that I really think, again, back to psychology, I'm always going back to psychology. So in the seller's market, I probably would step back from talking about more of the fast transaction or the cash transaction, because when you think about it, that's no longer appealing in a seller's market. Okay. I switch my focus more on selling the convenience of the transaction, So again, back to psychology, I want to say, hey, we can provide, I'm going to give you a fair offer. Instead of saying cash offer, I'm probably going to say, I'm going to give you a fair offer. Because one, why touch on something that's not even relevant anymore? So they're probably already getting cash offers. So why touch on that? But I'm tapping into the human emotion which is people like to be treated fair, right? So I probably will push the fair offer more than the cash. I probably won't touch on, hey, we can close in 3-4 days, because I mean, in a seller's market, they probably can close in that same time frame without us anyways. So for me, it's probably more of selling the convenience of them dealing with us. Hey, we're going to handle all the paperwork. We're going to set up. We're going to walk you through this whole process, right? We're going to sometimes just as simply communicating, hey, we're the guys that are going to follow through. Right. Just because someone is the highest and first bidder doesn't mean they're going to follow through. Right. We've done deals to where we were probably the second person in line, but the deal fell through and they called us back. Said, hey, we called you, blah, blah, blah. We know we lost the deal to another investor, but come to find out, they just couldn't come through for whatever reason.
Yeah. I mean, so people calling you guys trying to sell their house at a discount are already in a situation of some type of distress, financial distress, emotional distress. So if you're taking stress off their plate versus making the process more difficult, who do you think is going to get the deal? Okay, so and plus go back and we're talking about opt-in versus calling. I mean, it all has to do with social dynamics, the individual that you're dealing with, because we have people that do opt in to our opt-in pages, and they never call us. We never talk to them on the phone. We never do anything but contact them through email. Like there's some deals that we've got where we just have email conversations. People contact us at 3 a.m. They're introverted. They don't want to get on the phone. They're scared. They don't have to scam. And then we basically have email conversations and they allow us to get into the property. And sometimes we never even meet the seller. We do everything digitally, DocuSign. So it just depends on the situation. But okay, let's talk about something that's important for a lot of investors that they're not doing that I think you think is important, which is retargeting, right? So we're getting these leads. We're spending a lot of money to get them. But people are busy, right? What happens if they come to your website and they're about to take their kids to school, they're about to go get dinner or whatever happens, or the phone rings and they're on your website? People, get distracted and all of a sudden they disappear, but they may not come back to your website next. So how do we go after and get these individuals? So let's talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, no, I love that. And it's so true because I think this year we've done about 5 or 6 deals just off of retargeting. And for me, I love getting on the phone with those people because I want to get in their heads. Because I want to know why. Okay, you went to my website. Why do we have to find you again? That's another tip I want to give to everybody. When you talk to motivated sellers, dig in. Build. That's why it's so important to build rapport. I think so many times we know it's not a deal, then we just kind of shut it off, right, mentally. But me, I like to have conversation, and then at the end of the conversation, I say, hey, by the way, can you tell me how you found us? Or, obviously this deal ain't going to work, but we'll love your honest feedback. I kind of really elevate them and say, hey, what was it about our website that was attractive? What made you pull the trigger? That type of thing. And whatever feedback they give you, that's real data. I mean, that's the beauty of it. And if you begin to see a consistent theme, you probably should be including that into your marketing, right? So it's real data. We got to take our preference, what we think, how we do things out of the whole process. Okay. So anyways, not to get off track, but
so
with the retarget,
go ahead.
Yeah,
kind of break down, because we're probably way over the heads of a lot of people right now, right? So let's talk about like what is retargeting in the first place.
So retargeting is I'll just use Facebook as an example. So when someone comes to your site but did not take the course of action that you wanted them to take, so in our case, whether it's filling out a form, well, actually, it's probably going to be fill out of the form. So we target people that have been to our site but did not fill out the form, right? So we put a condition. So with Facebook, what we'll do is we'll go to Facebook and say, this is a retargeting campaign. We want to target those that have been to our site but never went here. So that tells us that they didn't opt in. So what happens is once that person is on this particular platform, so in this case, Facebook, they begin to see our ads. Okay, so in these ads, here's the thing too. Again, back to psychology, your ads should be running in line with the situation. So here's a good example. I actually had a guy I met. He's a Carrot member. He told me that we did a call on Facebook retargeting, we were talking about ads in general. And I told him, I said, okay, this is what we're doing. I was showing him how your ad should flow with your message or how you're marketing. So in this case, we're talking about retargeting, right? So this might be a good tip for those that are doing retargeting. So what we do in all of our targeting ads, knowing that this person's been to our site before, we bring that up in the ad. Hey, are you still trying to sell your house?
Yep.
Hey, you've been to our site. What happened? Right? Hey, we get it. Something got in the way, but if you still need to sell your house, call us. We're keeping in the flow of that particular lead. They're not a cold lead. It's not cold traffic. They're familiar with us. Even if they don't remember us, they're familiar with us. So, and when you see things like that naturally, we're curious, right? Just in general. So so this particular member made that little of adjustment. And he told me, I kid you guys not, it's one of his biggest wholesale deals that came from Facebook retargeting. I think he did like for 1525, somewhere in that. He just made that little minor adjustment. Before, he was just running ads like this person didn't know him. So his ads wasn't sticking out. I think he was just saying, hey, if you need to sell, or we buy houses. He was just treating it like a normal stranger. But I said, no, so he made that one little tweet, and like not long after that, he was able to close one of his biggest deals, and it came off of Facebook. So again, I'm not opposed to Facebook. It's just, what's the strategy behind it? So, but yeah, that's what Facebook retargeting is.
Yeah. So, I mean, everybody's seen those ads where they went to like some, shoe company or some car gurus or whatever and clicked on it, or insurance company. All of a sudden, it seems like they're chasing you around the internet, where everywhere you go, it seems like their ad pops up, or even in your email now. So let's kind of talk real quick here about mobile optimization, because more people, right? Everybody has an iPhone now. They're carrying around. How do you see the search results as far as people searching on mobile devices versus off their laptop or their computer at their desk?
I think it's going in that direction. And I can speak personally from my website. We generate a lot of traffic for all my websites, and we probably get about 56 to 60% of that traffic's coming from mobile now.
Yep.
So to me, that is something that I believe is going to continue to grow. Google is beginning to favor a lot towards mobile now, because they see that trend of people are using their mobile more and more, and they're making that adjustment. So that's why it's so important. Like if you guys are if you guys are putting your website on your mail piece. I know there's a big argument whether you should or not, but I believe you should put your website on your mail piece because of mobile. Because it's changing the game. People have quick access to the internet like never before because of mobile. So, which means one of the adjustments that we have to make as investors is we better start controlling our reputation online because people are looking us up. So if they see a mail piece and if they put, if I signed off, hey, I want to buy your house. My name is Adrian Nez. Call me here. You know what they're doing? They're probably not going to call, but they're going to Google my name.
Yep.
Right. And they're going to probably do it from their mobile phone. And what they find under Adrian Nez is probably going to kind of dictate whether they engage with me, because people kind of need that little permission to contact you because they're suspicious. Right. So I tell people back to kind of, I don't want to be all over the place, but like back to YouTube. Now it's tougher to rank for keywords with YouTube now. I'm sure some of you have probably seen a lot of videos disappearing from Google, and that's intentional by Google. But one thing they love is branding. Okay, so if you guys are a company that's branded, you should be making videos not around keywords, but you guys should be optimizing for videos around your business name or your name, especially if you're doing direct mail. Like if you're putting your company as your signature, you better start optimizing some videos with your business name because you want people to intentionally find things that you're putting out there. So if you guys are getting testimonials from your closed deals, get those testimonials on YouTube and optimize those videos for your business name. So someone says, okay, oh wow, okay, so let's say that you find someone who's interested in doing business with you, they're probably going to want to check up on you, right? And what's the first thing they're going to do? They're going to probably Google your name or your business name, whatever information you give them, which is whatever you put in your postcard or your yellow letter. That's what they're going to go by. Again, you got to understand what people's process is when they get something they're interested in.
Yep.
Right. And usually it's them being suspicious. So to me, one of the best ways to utilize YouTube today is optimize videos for your brand, whether it's your business. So that either could be your business name or your personal name.
Okay, so we're probably about to explode some heads here, but let's go into talking about how much of your marketing and what you're targeting is long tail keywords versus just a short, we buy houses, Plano or something like that. So are you going real deep? Are you looking into, real specific strategies, long tail keywords and specific zip codes, or like how in depth are you going, or are you staying on the surface?
With PPC or SEO or both?
Both really. I mean, I guess.
Yeah. So one of the cool things with SEO is Google's really gotten smarter. So like years ago, if you wanted to go after multiple keywords and multiple cities, you had to create one page just for one keyword. So for an example, I would have to create one page for We Buy Houses Dallas. And then we had to create another page for Sell My House Fast Dallas. And then if you're targeting, let's say Frisco, another page for We Buy Houses Frisco, then another page. I mean, you had to segment like every city and every keyword on different pages, right? So that was old school SEO. But now Google's gotten smarter. So now what you can do is you still want to kind of pretty much choose your main foundational keywords. And me personally, if you're in a city that has a lot of abandoned signs up around town and people are seeing it, I like to run with the We Buy Houses. Now, of course, there's that big lawsuit, big thing that people go after. So, I mean, if you want to play it safe, We Buy Dallas Houses is one way to go about that. For me, that's always my foundational keyword. But here's a cool thing. Now you can start building one page that you can start ranking from multiple keywords. Okay, so a real quick how to do that is, so I like to use We Buy Houses. The foundation of on-page SEO is, make sure you have your main keyword as an H1 tag. But then in your content, start sprinkling in similar keywords, which could be how to sell your property as is for cash, right? Or We Buy Houses with all cash. Now, here's kind of the thing that I caution people. Don't just throw in keywords to throw in keywords. Because what we said earlier was be intentional with it. So find opportunities to be able to read your content and then find opportunities where you can put some of those keywords in, but make sure it makes sense. Your grammar has to be good because Google is checking grammar now. Everything has to be spot on because Google hates copy spinning. You know what that? Remember that?
Yep.
Like you can buy the software and you can throw it in one article and then it'll spin it into like 50 different articles. Google hates that.
Yep.
Okay, so if you guys ever use one of those articles or software, you know that a lot of times the grammar is totally bad.
It's bad.
So the way that Google's guarding themselves or combating that is simply by looking at your grammar. So that's why everything should make sense. The cool thing is now you can write content that makes sense. Because years ago we had to say we buy houses Dallas, we buy houses Dallas, right? Now you can say we buy houses in Dallas, right? To where there's a nice flow to it. Now you can put in your content, sell your house for cash, and Google sees that as sell my house fast as well. So It's really, really cool. It's called LSI indexing. So that's why I go back to say, make sure you write your content that makes sense, that's helping people, and then just simply find opportunities to sprinkle in the similar keywords. And then that's how you start ranking for not just your money keywords, but also your long tail. For PPC, my approach is, I know a lot of people say to use long tail because it's cheaper. The problem with that for most times is there's not enough searches for those keywords that Google allows you to run them. That's the problem. So because I'm so dialed in, I do go after the money keywords. It is more expensive, but yet I'm still not spending more than I want to, which is cool. Yeah. So there's a give and take from that.
Okay, what about for the SEO side, duplicate content, right? Everybody's all scared about duplicate content within your own website, right? So what about, obviously, like, if someone's going and having the same content as someone else, that's not going to be good. But what about, do they penalize you for having the same duplicate? Say you have 60 city pages and all you did was cut and paste, and have all these different city pages, but you just changed Sell My House Fast Dallas to Sell My House Fast Plano to Addison, and everything's the same except for the geo-targeted keyword.
Right. So that's one of the most misunderstood things about Google is, first of all, it takes a lot to be penalized from Google. If you get penalized, you're going to have to do some crazy stuff to get penalized, right? So, and I don't think duplicate content is being penalized. What could happen is that your website may not progress as much as you want to. It might be a slow process, but they're not going to penalize you for it. It takes a lot to be penalized. So now that doesn't mean you should go ahead and do that, right? Like I said, the worst that I think will happen is your website will probably just stay put. Okay, because I've actually tested that. I really wanted to know, so I built out a website to where it was all I did was change out the city. That was it. Okay, and my pages, my city pages, they progress. So it's that's the one thing. You got to take things what Google say as a grain of salt. I think there's certain stuff they do put out there that is kind of, they say that just to throw people off and keep people in check.
Yep.
Again, but at the same time, I'm not going to take chances and test that because I have too much on the line with Google to not pay attention to that. So I'm not saying ignore it. I'm just saying certain things. So I've tested both, and I will say that by having unique content will help your website move faster. That's what I've seen in my testing. So as far as having duplicate, Google's not going to penalize you per se. You got to do a lot to be penalized. That's why it goes back to, as long as you're making your content unique in terms of user experience, you'll be fine. So people say, well, I don't know what to change something. I don't know how can I combat that? So I tell people, just change your mindset. And what I mean by that is don't change content for the sake of SEO. Change content to help somebody. So here's a good example. Like you're in Dallas, you probably have some city pages in Frisco and some other areas. I tell people, okay, look at your Dallas page and say something, even if it's just for one sentence, say something that someone in Dallas could relate to. Go to your Frisco page, do the same thing. Is there something in Frisco that someone in Frisco would get their attention?
Yep.
So I'm making it more about user experience, but yet by doing that, you're changing the content. So you're kind of killing two birds with one stone. So
Yep.
I tell people, don't change content for the SEO aspect. Change content so you can better communicate more clearly on how you can help that person, because that's the important part, is how they perceive your information. Okay. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. That's great. So one of the things I get a lot from investors is they get frustrated, right? They start out, they're like, I'm doing everything right. You know, they go on an Investor Carrot. Guys, we'll put an Investor Carrot link below the video. But they go through all the modules, the videos, or they do their own research on SEO outside. They're like, I've got the business citations, I've got the backlinks, I've got the keywords, I've done it, I've optimized everything, but I'm still not ranking, right? So how does seasoning and domain authority and the time that your website's been around, is this still being heavily weighed into Google's ranking in the algorithm, or do you think this is as big as it used to be? Or what about going into 2018? Because I know when we initially had our sites jump up, I think we didn't see a jump for almost a year from when that domain and those sites we put a lot of work in. So it took some time, right? It took that domain authority to pick up. So let's talk about that a little bit.
Yeah. So here's kind of the other way to look at it. So if someone asks me, there's coming to some determining factors on that. I get that all the time, actually. Some people think that SEO is just a one-time thing and you're done, and then your website is supposed to go, but it doesn't work that way. There are certain elements of SEO that actually you can do once and you're pretty much done. You don't need to do it again. So, and what I mean by that is SEO is kind of two components: on-page optimization and off-page. On page, you pretty much will take care of all of that when you first get started, right? Your content's in place. You want to make sure your SEO title, all of that stuff is in place. And you probably are not going to go back and change that or adjust that too much at all or ever. Where you need to be most consistent and actually determines more of the true ranking factors is going to be in the off-page optimization, which is, like you said, citations, backlinks. Backlinks is going to be the one thing. So usually, if you came to me and said, Adrian, I'm stuck on page 2, I'm in this market, and I tell them how much backlinks you're doing. None. That's the problem right there. So everything usually comes down to backlinks, which is cool because it's easy to diagnose, because that holds the biggest ranking factor, and that's probably the one thing that most people don't do, and because it's not the sexiest. It's hard. It sucks. Like school. I always say it's like science. Like there's that one class when we went to school that we just hated, and that's what backlinks is. But it carries the most weight. So I do caution, though, people stay away from Fiverr, stay away from certain resources when it comes to backlinks. You're better off just hiring a company or buy a good course on it and just do it yourself, because there's too much on the line to try and take going. Well, how long? Or people ask me, I can't rank. Then I just tell them there's nothing wrong. It's not that something is wrong. You just got to keep doing what you have to do. So if that means you doing 8 months of backlinks, that's what's going to happen, right? So just because you're not ranking, usually a lot of times I tell people, it's not that anything's wrong. You just got to continue to do what you're doing. So because a big part is Google will not throw you on page 1 right away because they don't know you, right? Because Google's customer is not you or me as web owners. Their customer is the searcher. That's who they're trying to make happy. So you have to look at it from Google's perspective. Is if they don't know you, they don't trust you, do you think they're just going to put you in front of their customers? No. So that's part of the aging process. So I tell people, like, you can totally do SEO perfectly, but that's not going to guarantee instant progression. I always say, like, in a Dallas market, it's probably going to take you 12 months. If you're in the DC market, it's probably going to be a 12-month project. If you're in the LA market, 12 months. Some markets, it might be 6 months, right? It just depends on the market, the level of competition, because in a lot of ways, you are playing catch up. There's already people that's ahead of you that have had their website longer. They got Google's trust. So it's going to be some work before you can penetrate through who's already there. And part of that is just it's just time and aging.
Yeah, so you touched on a little bit there with the backlinks and talking about how it's, not sexy or it's frustrating and it's not something that people want to do. But guys, this is how I've made a ton of money on all my businesses I've started. So literally, I look for these spots. I'm hunting these spots because if it's frustrating for you, it's frustrating for everybody. And most people try to go through life following the path of least resistance. They do the absolute minimum to get by. And so anytime you find one of these, niche strategies in the business or whatever that frustrates you a lot, understand that it's frustrating everybody a lot. So if you take the extra time to really get good at that, you're going to propel yourself up here while everybody else is staying down here because they're not going to take the time to learn it. So for example, like when Carrot came out, I was one of, I don't know, I was probably in the first 6 months, I was one of the first users, and I taught myself SEO just like you did. So
I remember that.
I mean, you're right here because you took the initiative to teach yourself. And look how look how it's progressed in your real estate business. You've got separate businesses because of it, because he took the time to really learn something that he knew would work, that he didn't want to have to learn, that nobody else wants to have to learn. It's benefited him in so many different ways. So guys, when you come across these different parts of your business that don't seem fun, that don't seem sexy, that seem frustrating, if you do learn it, it's a huge advantage for you going forward.
Oh, big time.
Yeah.
And I'm glad you touched on that because like even learning, like me and you, probably can go in any market if we wanted to, because now we have that skill set to do it. Right. Yep. Like, it's so funny. Like the problems I have in my real estate business is not lead generation because that comes easy. My problem was always on the follow-up, which is crazy because there's guys that are probably great at follow-up, but they're struggling to generate leads. Right. So there's always going to be this problem. So no, you're absolutely right.
Yep.
So, I mean, a lot of times, there's always this argument. What do I outsource? What do I learn? So I think if someone's starting out, I think it's always good to be hands-on to a degree. Eventually you do want to, as you scale, you do want to outsource. You want to, get other people to do it that probably do it better than you. But yeah, at the beginning, like, when you're talking about getting started in this business, sometimes we got to just pay that price of having to do it ourselves. And that's a great thing. Like I'll use Investor Carrot as an example. Like some people want us to hand them everything on how to do stuff, which we can to a degree. We got some great resources, great training. But sometimes I tell people there's going to be some stuff you probably have to go research Google, go jump into YouTube. There's going to be some aspects that you're going to have to go out and just hustle and learn and do yourself, right? Especially if you have very limited resources starting out. And you never know what can turn into a skill set that you can monetize down the road. Like you said, my SEO skill set has opened up so many doors and opportunity that I would have never imagined. But I look back and just so thankful that I made the choice to get up at 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock, and just sacrifice that time while everybody else is asleep, just to learn this and do what it takes. And here we are now. Now we're in a nice position because we're ahead of the curve. Now where people are just trying to catch up to us, right? So
exactly. Okay, so some people don't want to go through that. Obviously, it takes a lot of work to learn any skill. I remember typing on my city pages, like literally having to ice my hands because I was spending 7-8 hours in a row typing every day for like months on end, and I probably should have typed that much content. But at the time, that's why I was so for sure that if I got ranking high on Google, that there was going to be like thousands of leads coming in, right? But so if they have the money but don't have the time, you have an option for them, right? So guys, we have an expert right here. Don't call me because obviously I'm not going to help you because you're my competition. But Adrian, he may help you, right? So he's got a company that can help you do this. So let's talk about that a little bit and kind of the service that you can offer for them.
Yeah. So one of my passion and joy is really providing strategy on the front end. I don't really like to offer products and services right up front because I think every products and service should really be unique to one's personal needs, right? So I would love to offer any free strategy help to any of your listeners. They can just go directly to my website, adriannez.com, and just reach out to me there. And let's talk strategy. I would love to I can help them break down exactly where they are, what resources that you have to work with. And then from there, we can put together a strategy and what fits into that. That's a cool thing with what I love doing is that I love helping people understand where they're at and then present them with options. And then hopefully that will set them down a path of um, of getting a small win and then taking some of the small win prize and then investing more into the next step, right? Because it's about progression. I'll share this real quick, and I think you guys can see me visually. So I was at this one mastermind. It was actually a marketing mastermind. It was so powerful. I wish I had a presentation with it, but there's two mountains right here, right? And usually the goal is to get to the other side. And so our job is to create bridges that gets us to the other side, because there's the pot at the end of what they say, the goal at the end of the
rainbow,
pot at the end of the goal, whatever. But what happens as real estate investors, when we start a bridge and we only go halfway, then we start building a bridge and that one goes only halfway, and then we build another one that goes halfway, and so it's like we have so many unfinished bridges. So it goes back to what we talked about earlier. Choose one marketing method that can get you over the bridge fully. And then you take some of the resources that you got from getting to the other side and start building your other bridges, right? So when I learned that, and now that was such a powerful illustration. And to me, even though it was a marketing mastermind, I totally see that analogy perfectly for real estate investors. We're trying to build too many bridges, but they're not finished. Yep. Choose one bridge, finish it, take the wins from it, and then let that help you build your other bridges.
Yeah,
So
that's a really good analogy. Also, that's the same way that I look at it with my businesses or multiple streams of income. Get your main flow, your biggest company, your that's creating cash flow. Get that stabilized, get it cranking where you don't have much time involved in it, where you can delegate and outsource it, where it's a cash cow for you, and then you can go start your other businesses. But guys, that's a whole nother call to get into. But so is there anything that's coming, or any big changes, or anything that we didn't talk about that you think would be important before we wrap it up here, that Google's announced, or anything coming in 2018, or anything you think would be important to go over right now?
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to go down the rabbit's hole, or like you said, just have people's heads explode. But I think the whole concept is put your seller first. And I say seller because that's who we're targeting in general as investors. Put their needs first, whether you're doing SEO, pay-per-click, Facebook marketing, and I think you'll be okay.
Yep.
Now, there's going to be some technical changes, but usually where people get into trouble is when they try to get too creative and or it's not effective because they're just not putting thought process into it. So there's really nothing. I mean, Google's going to always be doing updates, right? But for the most part, what we teach over at Investor Care is always going to be evergreen. But I just tell people, if you have the mindset of just wanting to take care of the motivated seller, I think everything will play out for in some way on its own. You'll know how to market. You'll know what to say without really thinking too much. So to me, and the other thing I probably will say I'm seeing a lot in marketing is if you want to stand out, you got to put yourself out there. Be more transparent. We no longer can kind of hide behind the curtain anymore. There's too many competition. Everyone's doing the same thing. So you got to find that thing about you that makes you different. I learned this at a recent event. It's so good. The guy said, you got to find your brownie, right? What's your brownie? Yeah. And to use it I love his analogy. He said, Vanilla Ice, his brownie was he's a white rapper, right? That was his brownie, right? So I think in our business, we have to find what our brownie is, because everyone's saying the same message, right? We're saying the same thing. We're offering pretty much the same service. Now, what is it you're going to do that's going to help you stand out, right? What's your brownie, right? So it could be your brand. It could be, just you being the one that's so transparent. Are you the one that brings the skeleton out of the closet, willing to talk on things that maybe most investors won't? So like for me, a good example of bringing stuff out of the closet is we get a lot of feedback saying, hey, I just want to make sure this is not a scam before I talk to you. So now on my marketing, I like to put that, hey, this is not a scam. I mean, it's pretty simple. You know what I mean? So it's just so simple stuff but again, I wouldn't have noticed that if I wasn't paying attention to the customer.
It's like how do they, and I get that too all the time. I'm like, I just want to be like, how could this be a scam if I'm giving you money for a house, right? Like I don't understand, but I guess people are so jaded, and there's just so many people have been so hurt in so many different ways.
Yep.
People are such skeptics, and like, man, it's just crazy.
Yeah, and the good chunk of the people we target are probably going to be news watchers. So news tend to really always feed like, watch out for scams. Hey, don't get taken. Hey, I mean, it's amazing the things that newscasts or news channels focus on, like really petty stuff. And what happens, it just creates. Now, don't get me wrong. I mean, I'm sure there's some stuff that's good, that's beneficial. But overall, I think it just causes people to be more, like you said, more suspicious, you know. And plus, at the same time, 2008, I would say definitely has changed a lot of things. People obviously, it was no secret what happened, and so people are more skeptical. That's why I tell people, like, credibility is the thing now. I mean,
yep.
I think that's the new thing, is that you have to have credible stuff that people can trust,
yep.
you know, and be more transparent.
It's just crazy. I mean, what scares me is how scared everybody else is, right? So I mean, like, people these days, it's like they walk outside and they see their shadow and they freak out, right? Like, it's just crazy. But Adrian, man, I appreciate you coming on here, buddy. You gave a lot of good information, guys. Go ahead and give your contact information one more time, the best way to get a hold of you, and we'll go ahead and wrap this one up.
Yeah. So, yeah, you guys can reach out to me on adriannez.com, ADRIANNEZ.com. I'm doing a lot of stuff on Instagram, a lot of free tips, a lot of cool things, sharing really my everyday, not just real estate, but just my entrepreneur life. I'm on Facebook as well. So, and then you guys can email me at Adrian@Chief, RES, Chief, CHIEF, RES. And it stands for Real Estate Solutions. So chiefrealestatesolutions.com.
Awesome. All right, guys. Well, that's it for today, and we'll see you on the next one. Adrian, have a good day, and I appreciate you coming on.
Hey, thank you.